So, so we're like right there with each other. And I feel like he was just waiting for me to tell him some big thing. Like, he just knew, you know? Mm-hmm. He was like, he's like, I'm just really curious. Like, I meet these people and they do these big jumps in life and they find their purpose and there's so much meaning and joy. And I see this in you. Like, you're one step closer to your authentic self. What was it? Yeah. He's like, I always want to know, what is it that gives you that moment to move? And I'm like, I don't know. I've been thinking about this for years. And I laughed and I was like, oh my God, that felt like I was lying. That was, but I also...
But you didn't have it to give.
They have 2 small kids. They're going to a holiday party. The last thing they need is my...
Right.
I also know them too. Like, I find the closer my people, when I tell them, I share my raw emotion in that moment versus just words coming out of my mouth. And I like them too much to not be authentic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But also, it's a thoughtful holdback because you can share later.
Totally. Yeah. And I almost like texted him and I was like, no.
Which is different than being codependent because they're not.
Totally. And it's also, this was not about me. This was their appointment.
Right.
So
huge score when you're working to not make it about you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Whereas my clients here, I've seen them for almost 20 years, and part of them seeing me is to get the nitty-gritty on what I'm up to. I get it.
The Meg Show?
I've always got something silly happening. Mm-hmm. Not that this is a silly story.
But
there's always 6 weeks is always like,
the perfect amount of time.
What's the theme? Is it sharks? Is it, what is it?
What is the theme this time? Podcast.
Yeah. Or is it? I don't know.
I don't know. I know. And what's interesting is Ryan's gone. He's on vacation. The kids go to Petrus for a night, so just how things have aligned that we have some space to kind of figure this out.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, I think I just really, I don't want to say I shut down, but I just tightened the show up a ton. I'm just not socializing. I'm not spending time small talking. I mean, work is its own thing. That's different. But I remember the awareness, especially when I divorced. I was so sad, and people really struggled with how sad I was. People wanted me to be not that, and I could see that. Like, I had done enough of my own work, and I watched people's faces for a living. And in integrating that, while also having my own experience, I'm just aware of, like, it's like I'm in a movie and they're doing a scene change. And I'm just standing in the middle of the stage and the scene is changing around me. And this most stable place is just so be tight right here, right? So I'm just watching the scenes and the sets change and just trying to figure out what I'm doing, right? I'm okay, but I also appreciate, like, in some ways this is a hot mess, right? It's not as simple as, oh, he died, I'm going to grieve. Just that he would get there, and then realizing how unhealthy he was in so many ways, and then seeing that dishealth in so many people and collectively as a community and a country. And I mean, I know I'm getting like giant and big here, but trying to figure out what my role is for myself and my family, and then what I offer, because you said you've had so many people talking and sharing about their own experience with this. It's like, okay, what is my big learning, and then what am I doing with that? I'm in my nooks and crannies, which I already said, but really trying to figure out where I'm landing, and I don't know that yet. I'm just here, and the stage is moving slowly. I wish it was moving to an ocean stage.
Good.
I think that'd be a lot. I made a deal with Fisher that Fisher's my 12-year-old son.
I think if you were to ask Fisher now where he'd want to be, you might.
You think? Meg, I signed a lease. I have 2.5 more years.
Touche.
Fuck.
What's it called? To rent it out to someone else.
Sublet?
Oh, there we go.
Not co-rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked about this with some of my friends I've connected with, just being aware of, kind of like, we were in we could tell this story later, but we were in 2 weeks after Jerry died. We were all planning to be in California anyway for my grandma's celebration of life. She had turned 99, our grandma. She had turned 99. We're all together. And your husband says there is no small talk going on anywhere. So there was like 20-some people all at this Airbnb, just these intimate, vulnerable conversations and all these little vignettes. I'm using that as an example. Like, I just have no tolerance for small talk. Like, I don't even freaking talk to me about the weather.
No.
Or
I had this awareness. I met with Lynn's for lunch today, and there's so many times where I'm like, am I changing so much that people are, I don't know what the word, I don't know what I'm saying yet, but I noticed that I've always got something changing. I've always pivoting. I'm always...
Yeah. But that's some of how you are.
That's true.
Accommodating, compensating,
Yeah.
Figuring out what works best, which that's a whole, we could talk about that for...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm not interested in sitting around and drinking and bullshitting and talking about the same thing over and over without any...
But it makes sense if I use that analogy that I just came up with that I think is really beautiful.
It's beautiful.
If I may say so. That some of the people in my life are not choosing to remove themselves from that old scene and come into what's new, right? Like I had used this when I divorced. I had put this together right after we divorced, this awareness, like The Sixth Sense, that movie where Bruce Willis thinks he's being the therapist to this kid, and then it turns out at the end of the movie, it's like, oh my gosh, she's actually dead, and right. But the perspective of whatever we think is real and all the gaps that we fill in with the stories and the things that have our life look a certain way, right? And a lot of that stuff is lovely. And then when something hard happens and you're like, what? That wasn't real at all? Or I filled in so many gaps for that person.
Totally.
That I didn't realize that it was this crumbly, which kind of sucks.
Totally.
But
I know. And I think, am I boring? Am I perceived as boring now?
I don't think you're boring. No, but I think...
You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't do a lot of things anymore. But
I think people have not chosen to pivot with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus it was interesting, Jeff and Jean reached out, and I haven't seen them in ever. And they're moving, and might be moving abroad. And they were just wanting to know if we could continue our friendship into the future. It was super darling. It was like, we're no longer going to be here. We're also moving here.
We're going to be moving. Will you keep us on your schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, can I come see you next month?
Yeah.
And so we're going to go see them. But it's like, it was just like, I love their ability to just touch base. Hey, it's been a while. I'm like, you've been on my radar too.
Right. But I think it makes sense that people either stay in and shift with us, right? Or they're, And I thought I had more people here, and I don't, which is okay.
Totally.
So that's kind of my new prayer, is finding some new friends that are in a similar stage and space in life that I am. Because that's also another awareness, because I am healing and helping people all the time. I have a fair amount of people in my life that, although they're friends, their relationship is more pouring this way. And I wouldn't have put that together until Jerry died. It was like, oh, there's like literally a drip of coming in this direction. And now that you don't have my flow of, right, there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Another form of grief.
Right. Which is more of the nooks and crannies, right? And I do get, at my age, I really want to be intentional that who's ever here for this next chapter, and this next chapter being, I'm engaged to this beautiful human, and we're starting this whole new thing together. Just saw the transformation at my work, and the kids are getting older. It's like, ooh, what's next, right? I need people that are going to flex with me.
Do you feel like you are grieving that too?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I've moved in and out of, what part of this is my responsibility, and where I'm at is, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not my responsibility to fix the gap here. And I also don't have the energy or desire to educate you on how to do this differently. And I have just way too much that's more important right now.
Do you have the energy to connect with them or say your goodbyes, or is it
I'm figuring that out, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, we'll see.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the beauty is I can have as much time as I want because it's my life, right? And it's my privilege to take care of myself, whatever that means. Yeah. And I don't, anyone that I owe something to,
Yeah, barf.
no, but I mean, like,
Right.
you know, more of this is like we have agreements and commitments because we love and care about each other, you know, that kind of flow. I'm doing, and anyone that it turns out that isn't there, it's like, oh shit, I don't know what that is, right? And maybe some of that is labeling that better and also figuring out why I tolerated that.
Right, totally. I'm in my brain. I'm like, what was it about that relationship that? Where was the origin story of it? Right?
And because some, you know, as I say that out loud, I reflect on the transformation from my divorce, and you know, I will always be healing from whatever it was that we were up to, and whatever I was up to as a kid, and mom and dad, you know, blah blah blah. That all the work and healing and grief in the last how many years, and just is so much.
What would you say the theme is?
Well, but my point being,
sure,
I get that some of these people will be here for a chapter, and just like a wave, they'll be gone.
Yeah.
Right. So I am, prior to Jerry dying, the most. I'm going to use the word stable. Stable meaning I totally know what I am up to and where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have moments where I'm, I wonder how I feel, or I'm curious. No. I am in here and I know what I'm up to. I'm not saying I'm not uncomfortable and sad and, right? Mm-hmm. I'm super present and aware of what I'm up to. So I'm able to observe more of those details, right? And that's what I, for the first time, got together with a few of my friends last week. I hadn't seen them since Jerry died. And I was just kind of talking through how cellular that each big giant grief, mom, dad, well, dad's wasn't giant because that wasn't as sad because we didn't have as big of a relationship, but my divorce, which that has been my biggest grief to date for sure, to be in a place to be healthy and know myself and just be aware of the connections and the joy, right? Oh my God, I can't believe you fucking did that. You know, and to feel all of those little cellular pieces and just to watch, and then when all the family was together to watch people and just be present to all of that is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. So one is, obviously it's extraordinarily sad. But as you and I have talked about, because we're willing to be extraordinarily sad, we get to be way up here.
Totally.
And to see all that love and joy, that was maybe just as extraordinary, but the opposite end, right?
No, it was definitely just as extraordinary.
Yeah.
And everybody equally participating.
Yeah. In their own way.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah. Which, it's interesting because I was talking about that with my friends. I'm like, there's a component of, like the show Shrinking. If you haven't watched Shrinking, watch Shrinking. It's super great because you get to see people that are doing their work. You get to watch and see it, you know, in action and how you use some of this stuff. But the show is great because everybody's got different tools, and some people on the show, I would say, have no tools. No tools meaning they've never gone to seek help and retool, right? They're all committed to each other and their love and their friendship and supporting each other. And so all these different skill sets get to be in this commitment, right? Mm-hmm. Where I'm going with that is my awareness of that in my own life, but I'm in a place in my life where I want more people consistently in their work in the way that I am, which is different than kind of some of these relationships that I've talked about that are kind of over here. They're talking about things. Now that Jerry is gone and I'm in the corners and in the weeds more, it's like, oh, but you're not doing it.
Yeah.
You're not holding yourself accountable to change the behavior or to confront the thing and then sit in it and feel the things or use your words. And it's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to do that. Mm-mm.
No, you mentioned the childhood theme. What is, do you have like an overarching theme that it is?
Well, one is my overarching thing as a youth was abandonment, right? So dad's alcoholism, and then like literally leaving, right? And then of course I find not a companion. The person I was with before in my marriage, I found someone that could abandon me all the time. That was never on my team, and then then the sixth sense, I realized all these things that I thought were there weren't there. I was just filling in gaps and coping, right? And so I'm trying to be thoughtful that I'm not abandoning these relationships, right? But realizing how I've abandoned myself, for sure. And that's what I was really aware of in my marriage. Just my marriage was all the ways I abandoned myself at the cost of...
You built this lovely fortress.
Yeah. And on the one hand, we only know what we know, right? Wherever I was at and he was at when we first were together, it was the exact right thing, and I wouldn't say differently. And I say that because, who we are now is so different. We aren't those people. And it's easy for people to look from the outside, which I've had more of this talking with people as we're kind of talking through layers and talking about stuff. I don't see how you're with this person. It's like, no. I mean, we were meant to be, and it was at the time, and the things and whatever we were up to was what we were each capable of, right? It's just in hindsight.
Well,
hindsight, right?
Well, aside from the two beautiful babies.
Well, but that goes without saying. I mean, my children,
but I think
are extraordinary.
Right. We need that lesson.
Right. Right. The only way I was going to learn the things that I needed to learn was to be in this relationship, having that experience. And I was with him for 20-some years. It took me a long time. But the thing about that, like I laugh, that's tongue-in-cheek, right? I also had an extraordinary life within there.
Yeah.
Right? With limits and boundaries and walls and all sorts of things. And it wasn't until I got to a place that I love myself more than I loved whatever we were doing or not doing. And I get why many, 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 many people choose to stay married, right? Fuck the work, the money, I think I lost, like if there was a little number on your chest that showed how old you were, I think I lost, like, oh, no, the Princess Bride, and he's on the rack. In the basement.
Oh, God.
He's in the basement on the rack, and he's like... In
the torture chamber.
You had true love, and he took 20 years, or he cranked it up to 50, right? I feel like that divorce and the trauma and the work and the grief, it was like 20 years of my life. And I have certainly recuperated a lot of that.
More than that.
For sure, but it was...
No, more than that.
Yeah, yes, and it was life-altering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many months would you say you grieved?
I would say I still grieve now.
Yeah.
So the thing with being divorced is not like when our parents died, they're gone. I don't have to have some stupid fucking conversation with mom about codependence, or I can just do it however I want to do it. Right? Or just deal with my half. So selfish. I mean, we joke about the plus of having both of your parents dead. I don't have to deal with any of their stuff.
No.
But I mean, we joke. And we're serious, both. We can be both things, right?
It's true.
What was I saying?
I asked how many months do you think?
Oh.
But in that
when
initially,
you divorce, I have to deal with him all the time.
Right.
And, whatever that looks like, that doesn't feel good to me. And me being more and more aware of, it's like, I've unraveled all these big giant things. I've unraveled all these small things. And then now I'm in the cellular things that mimic things that we grew up with, right? It's like, oh, I'm still tolerating and putting up that, or, and then I have my lovely fiance who lives with me now, reflecting back to me.
We live together.
What did I say?
He lives with me now. Yeah. We live together.
He lives here, in this house.
He lives in my house now.
No, but I have to be careful.
No, I know. I corrected you.
No, but he's not lived here that long that it comes.
It's okay.
It's smooth.
I know. I'm just helping you.
Yeah. Yeah, and just him reflecting to me like, this is watching you struggle with this is painful. because I don't, because the kids are involved, it's not that simple. Well, if the kids were involved, we'd be done, right? But it's part of my existence to find a path that best supports our kids, right? Whatever that means, right? Two completely different people doing different things. Yeah, which is a whole other, talking about that, navigating. Yeah. At a minimum, though, choosing to love myself and then unraveling what the fuck that means. Right? I mean, we only can do at one time as much as we know. So, like, I do remember when I divorced, I actually had this, like, shame that people that knew me or worked with me would be like, you divorced? Or you...
Is that Catholic bullshit?
Well, but I think it's also, like I couldn't make it work, or I couldn't do it, or you're not as healthy as I thought you were. So I think some of it is cultural.
Internalized
human beingness, right?
Sure.
But it's also like, you fucking think that? Like, I was shocked to hear, right?
To hear yourself think that.
Yeah, and then right, and then the part of like, I so don't care about. I could not put. Oh, you remember when we were divorcing? I had the fucking ugliest hair on the planet. I'd had this super cool hair, and then I was growing it out, and I was in the grow out, and it was so ugly.
I don't remember.
So I had this ridiculous hair, because I normally have great hair. I had this ridiculous grow out hair that could not be styled, so I was just like, forget it.
Did I cut it?
No! No, but I remember you saying,
okay, I can listen.
There's no way to get from here to here.
Yeah.
Grow it out. But I didn't care. I was just doing my best to take care of myself. I didn't care about my exterior. And then I would show up at my kids' school and to watch people. Like, for a living, I watch people's faces, and I use the superpower of understanding where people are at to better meet them and help them heal. Well, in my life, what that looks like is, oh God, it's so painful to watch people's pain, watching me in pain. And then to have my own experience about that. Like, you think that we as women, you want to say that you don't care that what people think about what you look like. Oh, somewhere you do care about something, right?
Right.
And that's when I stopped wearing makeup. I stopped doing all sorts of things. I mean, I literally am in jeans and t-shirts or jeans and sweatpants if I'm out in the world 99% of the time, right? Because that's how I'm comfortable, right?
Yeah.
It's my, what's that called? Uniform. But all that to say, to watch all of that reflected back to me was really painful. And to have to get to a place, to choose to do my work in a way to heal instead of like, it's kind of like, oh, I'm just going to buff that out. No, I need to get in there and see where that's from. And watching Mom, like, we had a mom that she literally looked like she was going to work at an office every day, like with the slacks and the shoes, and right?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what?
Her navy slacks that are red.
Oh my gosh!
Argyle.
Right?
No, it was that red sweater.
Yeah. No, I mean, it did not reflect the work that she did or the environment she worked in. But so just dismantling all those pieces, and then growing up in the 70s and 80s, and to see what women look like and what's expected of them. So much dismantling. And then how I'll kind of cap this off is to then get to a place to want to start dating. 30 years after my last first date that I had when I was 19, and now I'm going on a first date at 49. I'm a few years into my divorce. And to have to navigate someone else getting to know me and like how it was a mind bend.
You did it with grace and
Thanks.
joy.
And pain. A lot of pain. Pain and grief.
My favorite was that you would put timers.
Oh, on my dates. Ah! God, right.
Or you'd see him and you'd be like, that is not your profile picture. Bye.
The first date I went on when I started dating, the guy was 5'10". 5'10". I showed up and he had already noticed me because your picture is on the...
Perfect.
And I couldn't retreat. He was maybe 5'5". He was probably 5'4". I'm 5'6", 5'6".
Also, there's nothing wrong with that.
No! But you don't say you're 5'10".
Wasn't honest.
Right. And he posted a picture that was probably from when he was 42 and didn't post his age. He was 58. Not at 49. No way, no how. Not when 49 is this, right? Well, no, I'm super healthy and like I'm
yeah.
not, I'm not super
You're
aged.
fit. You're fit.
I'm fat. I'm fabulous. God, that was painful.
Yeah.
And then the last first date that I went on was I go to meet this guy. This is like COVID's still going on, but it's like the tail end in 2021. Yeah. And I walk in and this guy stands up and he's like, "Can I hug you?" And I'm like, "Oh, God." Because you weren't touching anyone. Right? I mean, it was just still, and he hugged me and I smelled him. I'm like, "Oh, he smells lovely."
I would think it'd be like, I have to go bleach myself.
No, but he just I just knew he was like, well, we're engaged now.
Oh, that is right.
His pheromones were like right in alignment, but yeah, so that's where I landed, and then I started, and
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for joining us this week.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Yeah. This is good. I think this is good.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, but like literally, we need to say.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
But do we look? Or we look at each other?
We could look.
What do they do on podcasts that you've watched?
I don't know. I don't watch a lot of podcasts.
Okay, so we're not going to look at you because for some reason that seems creepy.
You can look.
Hi. Thanks for joining us.
What, do we need like a tagline or something?
Well, we will.
Okay.
I love you, Cookie. Is
Love
the
you,
tagline.
Cookie.
I love you, Cookie.
I love you, Cookie.
I love you, Cookie. Okay, but start over.
Bye. Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
Love you, Cookie. What?
I love you, Cookie.
I love you, Cookie.
I thought you said love you.
I did. Oh, I love you.
I
I
love you, Cookie.